Hey guys, it's Prince and welcome back. So this is a very special video because today we are going to discuss, my partner and I, everything that you need to know to boost you in the course of Technical English 2. So without further ado, this is CONYO Criminology, and today my partner and I will be discussing Technical English 2 in a nutshell. Okay, so before we begin, for your information, Technical English 2 is what we call a rehash or a recalibration of Technical English 1, which is the former's prerequisite course here in BS Criminology. In this subject, you will learn the depths of technical writing in its specificity, unlike Technical English 1, which was focused more on the construction, grammar, and such, all the technicalities of writing. So for the first part of our discussion, we have report writing. So this is a general terminology but a specific skill in the industry. It is applied when writing for many formalities like investigative report writing, for court-related paperwork like complaints or information, or for reports like spot reports or your progress reports, etc. So it's safe to say that report writing is a general skill needed in the industry of criminology because you get to make a lot of reports and a lot of court paperwork that would require you to have the basic skills sa report writing. So now let's discuss what is a report. It is a document that informs, reports findings, puts forward ideas, and sometimes makes recommendations on specific subjects for a specific reader. So like I have mentioned earlier, there are different types of reports and paperwork in the field of criminology, and a report has a lot of functions. So it is also a presentation of information. So a report can just be informative. It doesn't sometimes have a complete or a broad agenda, but just to inform. And now, to digest the definition of a report, there are three basic reasons for report writing. Number one is to inform. Like I have mentioned earlier, sometimes the agenda of a report is simply just to give information. Next is to report findings. So, like one of the things that I have mentioned earlier was a spot report and a progress report, which will be discussed later by my partner, Mr. Manuel. For number two, like it says, to report findings, sometimes a report gives specific people updates on what is currently happening or what is the current situation of a specific event. Lastly, it's to forward ideas or to give recommendations. Sometimes report is given to different departments to give them ideas or to give them recommendations as to what next actions or action they should take. Now, those three basic natures of a report all depend on the nature of the paperwork or the report that you are doing itself. Next, we have the qualities of a good report. Now, this is something that you have to remember and that you have to take in mind in your whole journey in Technical English 2. First is a good report is accurate. It must be grounded on facts. No opinionated statements like I think or in my opinion. So as much as you want your opinion to be respected, I'm sorry, it's not being asked of you. Number two, your report has to be concise. So you have to remember that your report must be brief, so only relevant information is needed to make your statement easy to be understood. Remember, your report is a small part of a long process, whatever it is. It should not take too much time to consume and to digest. So imagine in a criminal investigation, your report must be concise so when the people read it, they would immediately understand what the situation is. Next, your report must be complete. Although it should be concise, do not be afraid of putting all of the relevant and necessary information needed in the report. An incomplete report is like revising history. By not including important information, you're like changing the truth. So once you forget to include something, you would either change the whole truth or you are putting your reputation or your credibility on the line. Lastly, a quality of a good report should be clear. It shouldn't be a challenge for people to read your report. So first, the language must be easy to understand. Not everyone has advanced vocabulary, so be considerate. Especially when you're writing a report in an investigation, you have to consider that the people who will read that is not only the judge or the court. So you have to be careful with your vocabulary because people who don't have an advanced vocabulary will still read it. Next, your report must be logically sequenced. The order of the events in your report must be chronological. You can't put something that happens in the latter at the first part, vice versa. Lastly, the report must be neat so the reader can easily navigate through the information. So just in case that they are processing the information, dapat mahanap nila ng madali yung information na hinahanap nila. Kunwari, napasa man yung report and then they're using it as a reference for something, for example, in court. Kailangan patinignan ng mga tao yun, mahanap na nila agad yung information nilang hinahanap. There. So, before we end our discussion with the report in general, there are three types of writers. First is the writer who writes without thinking. Second is the writer who writes and think at the same time. And lastly, the writer who thinks first before they write. Now, when you are writing a report, you have to be the third type of writer. Because kailangan naka-line up na lahat ng isusulat mo bago ka magsimula. So, you must be the third type of writer as report writing is not spontaneous. You need to collate information first before you start with your construction. So now, for the discussion of the spot report and the IRF, I now give the floor to my partner, Mr. Manuel. Mr. Manuel?
Thank you, Mr. Medina. And my name is Janskel Manuel. And I discuss to you the police blotter. So the police blotter is a two recording process, which is the e-blotter and manual recording. In the manual recording, it is a recording information by filling up the IRF given by the reporting person about the important details on crime that happened. The desk officer of the police station is in charge of encoding the information in the IRF into the police blotter. So sa e-blotter naman is it is an electronic blotter system in recording the crime incident nationally. It is a more easy and convenient because it is a simple to locate, disseminate the data if needed. The next is the importance of the police blotter. Ano nga bang importansya ng police blotter? So the police blotter serve as an eternal records of events dilim na that has been happened. It keep the people knowledgeable of the events within the police jurisdiction. It will keep them safe because they already enlightened. And the next is a guide to writing the report, which is the 5 W's and 1 H. The first is who was involved. It is the character part of the person involved in the incident. It is a composed victim, suspect, witness, and other that understanding in the time of occurrence. And the next is when did take place. It is the time, date of occurrence. It must be specific. Example, on February 14, 2022 at 3:49 a.m. The next is where did it take place, or it is the place occurrence. It must detailed. So next is what happened. It is the nature of the crime. It must present the situation that happened. The last is why did happen. It is the motive of the incident. It must lay down all the details, all the alleged by the characters. And the last is how. It is the modus operandi or circumstance that led to the incident, all action, activities, description, around or everything in the scene or area during, before, and after the incident must be included. And pinakamahalaga rito ay kailangan sa police blotter ay nandun ang contact detail ng ating complainant, nandun yung signature, etc. etc. Pati ang police na desk officer. Next is ang spot report. A concise narrative report of essential information covering events or conditions that may have an immediate significant effect on current planning and operations that is afforded the most expeditious means of transmission consistent with requisite security, also called spot report. So, the spot report dapat hindi ito lalagpas ng 24 oras. So, dapat nakasaad din sa ating spot report ang elements of report, which is the 5 W's and 1 H, which is the who, what, where, when, why, how. So, meron po akong ipapakitang example ng ating spot report. So, ito ang isang example ng spot report. Nakapaloob dito yung for the regional chief from chief of the police. Yung subject, yung kaso, halimbawa physical injury, nakalagay rin din dyan ang date March 15, 2022, and din sa reference nakalagay dyan ang unit ng case number, tsaka sa number 2 nakalagay din dyan ang 5 W's and 1 H, tsaka yan motive of incident, was cause, jealousy, tsaka progress report, tsaka yung pinakamahalaga ay ang pirma ng police officer.
Thank you, Mr. Manuel. Now, for our next discussion, we are going to talk about one of the most sadly famous crimes, which is homicide. Now, according to Article 249 of the Revised Penal Code, homicide is the killing of a person when not any of the circumstances mentioned in Article 248, which is murder, is attendant. So, if it's not murder, it is homicide. So there are requisites to make the crime qualified to be murder, and if it's not under those requisites, then it's homicide. Homicide, where it is homicide as well when it is not qualified under parricide, infanticide, and abortion. However, similar to the aforementioned crimes, homicide should not be qualified with any justifying circumstances like self-defense or other exemption to an omission of a crime. So, if the crime is justifiable by self-defense or other justifying circumstances, it's not homicide. Now, in our understanding in the course, unlike murder, which details cruelty and the awareness and willingness of taking the person's life, homicide is the tragic result of irresponsibility, recklessness, or impulse. Remember those three words: responsibility, recklessness, or impulse, because those three things, when they manifest into an action which leads to the death of a person, it is not justifiable, even if it is not murder. Now, to give the huge difference between murder and homicide, murder is cruel. So, to give you an example, for example, may naghamon ng away. Si person A, hinamon si person B ng away, at si person B tinanggap. Nag-away sila, and then namatay si person B. So, the person A has committed homicide. Kasi aware si person B, tinanggap niya. And walang intention of cruelty at walang treachery na nangyari kasi tinanggap ni person B yung away. However, if si person A, bigla na lang hinila si person A, inaway, binugbog at namatay, at meron siyang intensyon patayin at pahirapan si person B, that is murder. Now, to give you bonus information about other crimes that are similar to homicide, let's talk about parricide. Now, according to the Revised Penal Code, a parricide is any person who shall kill his father, mother, or child, whether legitimate or illegitimate, or any of his other ascendants or other descendants, or his spouse shall be guilty of parricide. So the key word in parricide is that is the words ascendants and descendants. So what you have to remember to identify if it's parricide is that they must be related by blood. So it doesn't have to be legitimate, it can be illegitimate as long as related sila by blood. That is parricide. Now next we have infanticide, which is the killing of a child less than 3 days old. So, if pumatay ka ng child, whether kamag-anak mo, kadugo mo, or hindi, it is infanticide when you kill someone less than 3 days old. If sariling anak mo pa rin, that is still infanticide as long as pasok siya dun sa age. Pero if you kill someone above 3 days old, that is already considered parricide pag ascendant mo siya or descendant. Now, when it comes to the penalty, if you are a relative and you have committed the crime of infanticide, the penalty would that be of parricide. However, if hindi mo naman kamag-anak yung namatay mo and it's considered infanticide, the penalty shall be for murder. Now that is all for homicide and the other crimes related or similar to it. Now let us go back to my partner, Mr. Manuel, for the discussion of the warrant of arrest and the search warrant. Back to you, partner.
So, thank you, Mr. Medina. Ang ating next na topic naman ay ang warrant of arrest and search warrant. So, ano nga ba ang mga definisyon nito? Warrant of arrest is an order in writing issued in the name of the people of the Philippines, signed by the judge and directed to a peace officer commanding him to arrest a person or persons stated therein and deliver them before the court. While in search warrant, it is an order in writing issued in the name of the people of the Philippines, signed by the judge and directed to a peace officer commanding him to search for personal property described therein and deliver them before the court. So, ano nga ba ang pagkakahintulad ng dalawang ito? So, parehas silang ini-issue ng judge. Dapat din itong may patupad or mahihain sa loob ng 10 araw. At dapat nakalagay rin dito ang specific na bagay, lugar kung saan hahanapin at ang taong huhulihin. So ating tatandaan na nakalagay sa warrant of arrest or search warrant ang mga bagay na may kinalaman sa krimen. Tandaan, nakapaloob din dito kung saang bagay o lugar hahanapin. Halimbawa, nakalagay sa search warrant na ang bahay lamang ni Romel ang iimbestigahan. Kapag wala silang nakitang ebidensya, hindi na sila maaaring pumunta pa sa bahay ng kabila dahil hindi ito nakalagay sa search warrant. Hindi katulad sa warrant of arrest, nakatuon lamang ito sa taong huhulihin. So, kailan nga ba ang mga execution ng mga ito? So, ang search warrant, preferably daytime. While in the warrant of arrest, anytime. Daytime, nighttime, kahit anong araw, mapaaraw man yan o gabi. While in the search warrant, ginagawa lang ito during daytime. Gets? Tanong, may expiration po ba ang mga ito? Warrant of arrest ay walang expiration. No duration time po ito unless na mahuli yung suspect. Di katulad sa search warrant, meron lang itong 10 days execution.
And that is all for this video. We hope that you have learned a lot from our discussion. This has been Noel Medina and John Manuel reporting Technical English 2 in a nutshell. So don't forget to always hydrate and sanitize. Thank you again for watching. See you in the next CONYO Criminology episode.